Charlie, you're muted.
Okay. May the meditations of my heart and the words that I speak be a reflection of the Christ presence within. Sacred story is something that has become a very big part of my life. Being able to reflect that sacred story of who we are and who we have come here to be, how our lives intermingle. And the wonderful thing about sacred story is that my sacred story is going to be different than your sacred story, even if we experience the same experience. I'm often amused when Dennis and I will remember an experience that we've had together, and he will remember something completely different than what I remember. And it's just that reminder to me that we see the world through our eyes and through our perception. I used to think that I had to prove that I was right. And then I realized that it's not about being right. It's about really knowing what that experience meant and brought into my life. So as we enter into our time together today, I want to look at the power of forgiveness. Now, if you're like me, forgiveness is a part of your story. The different people that you have had to forgive in your life, or the things that the experiences that you've had that you've needed to enter into a place of forgiveness. So when I think about it in those terms, I want to run and hide. I'll just be honest. Somebody says, oh, we're going to do a class on forgiveness, or we're going to do a talk on forgiveness. And I'm like, yeah, where's the desk? How can I hide under it? I just want to hide. I don't want to look at all that pain. I don't want to go back and revisit all that stuff. And so I decided to do a study about forgiveness and see if I could gain a new perspective for myself. And so today I'd like to share with you what that perspective is. So I went back to the root word for forgiveness. And the root of forgiveness is Latin, and it is pardonare, meaning to give completely, without reservation. And it's also where we get the word in English for pardon. When the Latin pardonare was adapted into the Germanic ancestor of English, it was translated piece by piece. And so per was replaced with for, a prefix that in this case means thoroughly, and donare with gaifan, to give. The result was for gaifan, as it appeared in the Old English, meaning to give up, allow, as well as to give in marriage. And I was really struck with the piece about as well as to give in marriage, because when we think about that, when we give someone in marriage, we are giving our love. And so to me, that says that at the root of this thoroughly giving up and allowing is love. And so I took that and I began to think about what forgiveness would look like if it were done in the levels of consciousness. Now, the levels of consciousness, the states of consciousness, as I have learned them, are victim, metaphysician, mystic, and master. Now, in the West, we are so used to doing things linearly. And it's also like, it's almost like graduating from a class. So you're a victim and you graduate to metaphysician, kind of like you graduate from kindergarten into grade school. And then you graduate from metaphysician into mystic, like you're going from grade school into high school. And then you graduate from mystic to master, and you're getting your higher education, whatever that looks like. But that's not how it works. Life is circular. And we have these levels of consciousness working within us at all different levels all of the time. And so there's this knowing that these levels are at work. And in one situation, we may fall into that victim role. And yet in another situation, we may be at that master level. And so this morning, I want to look at how forgiveness shows up in these different levels as an awareness so that we can recognize it. Because only in the recognition can we make a choice. So another way to look at these states of consciousness is the to me, by me, through me, and as me states of consciousness. So we'll begin with the by me. So in this state of consciousness, it is this place where we see forgiveness from the same perspective that we saw it as a child. Somebody did me wrong, or I did somebody else wrong, and there needs to be a retribution. There is, in this consciousness, it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Meaning that someone needs to bring in the balance by making amends, doing the work of somebody else needs to say that they're sorry to us. And we hold on to the resentment. We don't ever really deal with the resentment. We just kind of stuff it down. It's kind of a pseudo forgiveness in the sense that in this level of forgiveness, we're really in that place of even exchange. And it's that place of even exchange that becomes very painful. And so we move on. We might move on and we might be willing to allow ourselves to look at forgiveness from a different perspective. And in the next perspective, the by me stage, we recognize that forgiveness is this piece of it is my job to forgive. I have the power to forgive. I have the power to release, but we're still doing it ourselves, pretty much. We recognize that when we have been able to forgive that the situation or the people, we can still remember it, but we remember it with less toxicity, with less emotion. In this stage, we do a lot of work. This is the stage where we do a lot of processing and we do forgiveness processes in order to help us to release and to let go. So we're in this place of I can do this myself. Thank you very much. And so we know the value of forgiveness, but we're still looking at it as something that we need to work at, that we need to do the work, that we need to really put in the effort. And we become tired. And we get to that point where if somebody says the word forgiveness to us, we just kind of want to scream. Because we see it as work that we need to do. And we become tired of always looking at what's wrong with me. In the next state of forgiveness, it is the through me state. And this is when we invite Spirit to come in and work through us. We invite Spirit to do the forgiving. Let me say that again. We invite Spirit to do the forgiving. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He didn't say, I forgive you, for you know not what you do. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And so there was an acceptance and allowing. There was a space that was opened up to allow Spirit to move through him and to clean out that forgiveness, clean out whatever it was that needed to be forgiven, to transform the experience. And we too are invited to allow Spirit to come through us and move through us and create that space to allow. That's part of the word forgive, is to allow. And so we allow Spirit to move through us and work as us. Well, as us is next, but it's that stepping stone. In this level of forgiveness, we really enter into that place of being able to see with new eyes. We begin to recognize all the places where we see other. Because in God, there is no other. And so when we allow this presence to work through us, then it opens our eyes to see where we see other. I'm going to invite you into a little experiment, let's say. So imagine yourself, I just want you to use your imagination for a moment, and I want you to imagine yourself, you're going to go to the grocery store. And so you get in your car or whatever vehicle it is that's going to take you to the grocery store, and you're driving down the street, and the car in front of you has a bumper sticker, and you have a reaction to that bumper sticker. I just want you to imagine for a moment a bumper sticker that you've seen that you had a reaction to. And you don't have to know it exactly, but you had a reaction to it. And when you had a reaction to that bumper sticker, did you judge the person that was driving that car? Did you make them right or wrong? Were they an ally or an enemy? So then you go to the store and you get in the store and you're in the produce department and there's that person that is inspecting every piece of fruit in the bin. And because we're doing social distancing and you want to be polite, you're standing back and you're patiently waiting and waiting and waiting. What are the thoughts that you have about this person? And after you have those thoughts about that person, you've kind of headed down that road, you see somebody who has tattoos all over their body and body piercings. What are your thoughts? Or you see somebody who's homeless, who came in because they had a little extra money, and so they came in to get a little something to eat. What are your thoughts? We recognize in this state of consciousness where we have other, where we engage in that place of separation. And we have been trained. We have been trained to do this, to assess. The brain assesses our circumstances because there's that job of keeping us safe. And so it determines what is safe and what is not. But now imagine yourself for just a moment going up to the cashier. And even though she has a mask on, you can just see that she's smiling and she's looking in your eyes and making that connection with you. And you make a connection with her or him in that very moment. And you know that they are seeing beyond your appearance. They are seeing something deeper within you. And they are accepting you just exactly as you are in that moment. How does that feel? And then they come a little closer and they kind of whisper some words. And when they whisper those words, what are the words that you hear? What are the words of acceptance and love that you hear in that moment? Allowing you to be exactly who you are. And as you exit the store, how do you feel? And when you see that next person, do you smile at them? Do you see beyond the appearance that we want to make judgment about? And see beyond them into a clearer view of who they are, that they too have the Christ presence within them. They too are expressions of the divine. And can we in that moment recognize that and connect with that divine presence within them? There is one way and one way only that I see that we can do this. And that is when we recognize that there is no separation. And in this state of consciousness, we recognize that there is no separation between us and other. We recognize that there is a oneness. And that as we allow Spirit to do that forgiveness work within us, then we have the power to step into something that is much more real. We have the power to step into something that empowers us even more to express that love. That is what we are all about. We are as expressions of love because God is love. We are expressions of love. And so how do we show up as love in the world? In Mastercraft, an old Unity book, it says, you must let the human self of you so merge with the divine self that your forgiveness is as natural with you as your breathing, that it just becomes a part of your experience, that we are constantly in a state of forgiveness. And that doesn't mean we're in a constant state of looking for what is wrong, that we're in that constant state of allowing Spirit to move through us and love the world. In the next state of consciousness, we know that there is no separation. We know that there is no other. We live from that consciousness of knowing that I am that, and that whenever we forgive, we are forgiving ourselves. And actually, We don't even do that. Jim Rosemurky, in his book Recent Revelation, it says, God need not forgive you, for he has always loved you. Forgiveness is required when there are hatred and resentment. There is neither hatred nor resentment in God. There is neither hatred nor resentment in God. And so therefore, God does not forgive us. It is we who have to allow ourselves to be so immersed in the presence of the divine that there is no need for forgiveness. That love radiates from us as peace. That love radiates from us as connection. That love radiates from us. Now, I want to say again that this is not about a linear event. And we can be in different places with different circumstances or situations in our life. We can move from one stage to the other in a nanosecond. But the thing is to be aware, to be awake. As we wake up to that truth that is within us, as we wake up to a bigger picture of who we are and who everybody else is, then we enter into a place of allowing, a place of acceptance, a place of giving thoroughly, completely from the love that is within us. In Hawaii, there is a spiritual practice of forgiveness, and they believe that all illness comes from unforgiveness, from unresolved issues. And at the foundation of this belief is that we are all responsible for everything that's going on. And that as we engage in the process of allowing spirit to move through us, then we engage in a process of opening ourselves to that healing presence. One of the quotes that I read said that if we entered into a place of forgiveness, there would be no need for physicians, psychiatrists, all of that, because we would be automatically healed. And actually, it doesn't say that. It says that there wouldn't be much of a need for physicians, psychiatrists, medical professionals, because that healing would be taking place within us. So this Hawaiian practice is my brain just went offline. Sorry. I can only think of 3 of them. I'm sorry, I love you. Oh no, there's 4. I'm sorry, I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. I'm sorry, I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. Those 4 little phrases healed an entire criminal psychiatric ward in Hawaii. That when the practitioner entered into that place, he didn't meet with the people and go over with them what they had done and making retribution and all of that. He held them in a place of saying, I'm sorry. I love you. Please forgive me. Thank you. In that place, we recognize that there are times that we make errors. We make errors in judgment. We make mistakes. What is important is that we don't become the mistake. We don't own the mistake. We allow ourselves to feel that energy of, I'm sorry. And when I say that, I'm not talking about being a lowly person. I'm talking about recognizing those places, those little places within our consciousness where we have seen other. That please forgive me, because when we enter into that place of please forgive me, we enter into a place of openness. And that please forgive me can be, please realign me. Awaken my consciousness to the divine presence that is within me. And in that, I allow Spirit to move through me. And only through allowing Spirit to truly move through me can I say, with true conviction, I love you. And then from that place, we enter into a place of gratitude, of deep gratitude, because we feel the peace. We feel the restoration of our soul in connection with God. And as we feel that restoration of the connection of our soul with God, we cannot help but say thank you. And so I want to take a time for us to close our eyes. A time to allow ourselves to be in this very moment. And so as we breathe, we recognize the breath of God breathing us. One breath, one spirit, one humanity, one creation. We recognize those areas in our body that are tight. Maybe where we're holding something. And we allow this holy breath to flow into that space. And with the exhale, we just let it go. Allowing the breath to be what the breath is. We bring into our mind a beautiful rosebud. This bud can be any color you want it to be. But it is the perfect bud. And as you continue to breathe, you are aware that the bud begins to open. First, at the top, the petals are loosened from their tightness. And then in the center, they are loosened from their tightness. And at their base, they stay grounded to the stem. To the source that brings life to the bud. And we begin to see one petal break away. Just ever so slightly. Making room. And we see another petal, maybe on the other side of the rose. Break away ever so slightly. Creating a space to allow the other petals to unfold. Each of these petals represents an aspect of our lives. And so as the petals unfold, we are opening ourselves and allowing a space for the love of God to come in and to reveal our beauty. To reveal that which is the center of who we are. With each breath, we open ourselves more to the divine presence and the activity of the Holy Spirit as grace moving through our lives, unfolding these petals. Reestablishing our entire being in a state of wholeness. A state of unconditional love. A state of peace. in this state of oneness, in this place of wholeness, unconditional love, and peace. We hold within our hearts all those that we would pray for today. We see them with new eyes. We send them a blessing of light, a blessing of love. A blessing of grace active in their lives. And a blessing of peace. And so again, we just breathe into this space. We may want to consciously take that bloomed flower and place it in our hearts. Just imagine ourselves taking that bloomed flower and putting it in our hearts so that we may be awake and aware to the love of God that is us, is the foundation of who we are. And so it is.